I woke up on a Sunday morning in my house alone, and I went outside to arm myself for the day with a cup of coffee. I've always been an early riser, so it wasn't surprising that the rest of the house wasn't awake. We had just moved in, and I still wasn't quite used to moving around the hallways in an early morning coffee-lit state. On top of that, there were still boxes all over the ground from a handful of my friends who were staying with us until they could move into their new house, too. It had been a great couple of days, and having all of my friends together in the same place was really fun, but I treasured the few moments in the morning that I could have to myself. I beelined to the kitchen as quickly and quietly as I could, stepping over piles of people as I went, taking care not to hit the doorstop, since it was one of those spring ones that seem to beg to be kicked and then make an ungodly racket when they are. I reveled in the silence as I drank my coffee, knowing that even if it was early, the noise of the coffee maker should have woken somebody up, and I slowly got used to the general idea of being awake. Ready, finally, to face the day, I took a look at the clock on the microwave. That was late enough for the whole house to be awake, and for children to be screaming in the park across the street. There should have been some noise, at least birds or something, but there wasn't. Even a handful of college students should have been awake that far into the afternoon. I looked at the clock again. Almost 3 p.m.? That was way too late for the entire house to be asleep. Someone must have had at least some kind of obligation or reason not to literally sleep the entire day away. I went to look in the living room to see if I had just missed the entirety of the house leaving. I looked at the sleeping bags, and they indeed were empty, so they must have left. That resolution sat oddly with me, though. Creeping, viscous dread began to invade my thoughts. I looked at the clock again. Sundays were normally the days when everybody stayed home and tried to finish homework, so it'd be pretty abnormal for everyone to go somewhere altogether, even during the afternoon. I decided to check the shoe rack in an extra burst of paranoia, but all the shoes were there. My friends were gone, but all of their shoes were still on the shoe rack. Inexplicably, my creeping dread exploded into full-blown panic. I rushed outside without a fully formed purpose in mind. I just needed to see other people, even ones I'd never met before. I took the stairs outside my door at such a quick pace that I stumbled on the last floor and scraped the heels of my hands on the pavement below. My hands stung, but any thought of that fled my mind immediately when I noticed there were no cars on the street, one of the busiest streets in the entire city, and there were no cars out at all. In fact, there were no people out either. It hit me in that moment like a slap to the face. I was alone, completely and utterly alone. None of my goals mattered. All the progress I had made in my life hadn't changed a thing, hadn't affected anyone in the end because all of the other humans on the planet were gone without a trace. I was alone, and I would stay alone. I woke up panicked, not because of the dream. I'd had that dream on a semi-regular basis, and it for the most part had lost its ability to scare me. No, I was frightened because I could tell for some inexplicable reason that there was something else in my bedroom. I tried to turn my head to look, but I couldn't move. I couldn't move. My panicked feeling doubled, and I struggled even harder to move as I sensed that whatever it was that I somehow knew was in my room began to move closer to me. My breathing became erratic. I felt trapped as I continued to struggle, and the terror I was feeling mounted. I could feel hot breath in my ear. I heard a low, menacing chuckle, and then suddenly, I didn't. I flung myself off the bed blindly as soon as I felt my ability to move return, and as I looked around I saw nothing was out of the norm. My roommate was snoring peacefully, and my silent terror had gone, apparently, unnoticed. The first time I had an incident of sleep paralysis, I was 7 years old, and it was preceded by the most terrifying nightmare I had ever had. I had them occasionally that year, but they had stopped pretty much completely by the time I left the 5th grade. And now they apparently had just begun again. I did a lot of research back when I first realized what was happening to me, and the frightening feelings surrounding those events eventually abated. This time, as I woke up, my feelings of terror subsided even faster once I realized the same thing had happened to me in elementary school had begun again. Even now, when I wake up and can't move, though it takes a moment, I always, eventually, realize what's happening isn't real. It isn't real.